Thank you for attending tonight's agenda prep session. I know from Mrs. Wolford she was unable to make it tonight, and we're ready to get started. On your desk are a number of items I printed out for you. One is a memo. It's a one-page memo, and it has the proposed action items for the City Council meeting scheduled September 9th, 2013, beginning at 6:30 p.m. I'd like to start that meeting, if we could, with a public hearing to get input from the public related to the new cable franchise agreement with Comcast. It's important as a preliminary step to negotiating a new agreement that we've solicited from the public input about their satisfaction, concerns, requests related to the new cable franchise agreement. So stay tuned for that. If we're able to do that, we will do that and advertise it appropriately. Next, under administration, there are 3 items. There's also 4 items under public works, and I'm not sure if there'll be any under planning or police. For administration, one is a housekeeping item related to our police pension. I believe our solicitor might be looking at some of that right now. And we need to pass an ordinance relative to procurement of professional services, to the killed in service clause. We right now carry a policy for killed in service. The state is now picking that up, but our ordinance reads that we pick it up. Once we eliminate that from our ordinance, we'll be able to drop that because the police are being covered by the state. And then the last one is related to the 12-year vesting. So there's 3 items that we'll look to tweak within our ordinance related to the police pension. Mr. Kelly, do I have?
Yeah, the 2 of them are definitely ordinance related, and that is the killed in action and the 12-year vesting. Those 2 have to be changed by ordinance. The other issue, procurement, may be done by a resolution. I have to double check.
Okay.
I should have the resolution for the next meeting. The ordinance I'll have to see. It's a question of getting it advertised for this winter or October.
The next item under administration is related to, again, the credit card concept of allowing people to use a credit card, but they will pay all of the fees. So if you want to use a credit card, you'll have a convenience fee, a service charge. If you don't want to use it, you can save the money and pay cash or check. The third one would be, well, to them it's about 2.5 or 3%. You know, so if they have a $100 bill, it'll be $103 or so forth. I've shared some of those with council via emails, and I can certainly do that again, and I will before the next meeting to give you the exact.
The customer.
Correct.
Is it for customers paying taxes or?
They could buy passes, pay for garbage stickers. It's really nice for down payments for roll-off boxes. We don't have a credit app with some of those customers. We'd just be able to swipe the card, and right now, what's the deposit for a roll-off box? $500. They'd be able to give us their credit card, and we'd hold that as a deposit, that kind of thing. So it would just, I think, make it more convenient for the various customers who do business with us. They'd be able to pay parking tickets or other kinds of fees related to police reports, for example.
I have a question backing up to the police first item there.
Sorry.
If we go, the killed in service benefit is being picked up by the state.
Yes.
And are we then dropping, we have an insurance policy that picks that up right now that we won't have to?
Correct. We'll
buy
save some
longer,
money.
so there'll be when does that policy expire? What's the current policy?
Do not know. I'll find out the current term.
I mean, if all before the October, we should get this done prior to that. If it doesn't, and I don't know when the policy period.
Yeah, that's a good
Rather than
question.
renew it,
No, I understand.
or if we're in the middle of it anyhow, it's not much different. But if we're seeing some type of savings there, we should see what that policy is.
Item 3 is related to something we've discussed quite a bit. There's 2 items in a grant request that that I'm seeking permission to submit, and one is for software updates that have been recommended through the early intervention program. The other one is for a business plan for the transfer station. After council voted in July, I think everybody wanted to say we must have a plan, whatever that plan is, whether that's outsourcing parts of it or none of it, or doing it in-house. We need to know how much equipment we have and how we do what we do. And that's part of what this would be about. This would be similar to what we've had before, 50-50 kind of arrangement where the state would pick up 50% of the cost and we would pick up the other 50%. We're looking at about a total for the software and for the business plan of about $80,000. So the city would be picking up about $40,000. And again, we would look to budget that in the 2014 budget year. My understanding from the state is they would really like to see us move forward, and so we've got a pretty good chance to get funded. But I think for us, knowing that the transfer station in 10 years, for example, might do $5 million worth of business, it's important that we really have a plan going forward on how to handle equipment and everything else we do up there.
40 grand, that's a pretty big chunk.
Yeah. Well, we'll make
What is the
application.
software upgrade though?
These would be for accounting software. I don't know if you're familiar with our system now, but not according to the report, but the reality is we're still operating on a DOS.
Yes, I know.
For billing. Our billing package for our garbage is dated. Our payroll is dated. And our accounts payable and accounts receivable accounting systems are also.
So again, what software? We're talking about payroll software,
General
accounting software,
billing software
software for the taxes.
as well. Theirs is quite dated.
I mean, that's included in this 80 grand
Yeah.
cost. So there's 4 software packages right there. Anything in the police department?
They're pretty
It's
up to
included
date.
in this.
They're pretty up to date, yeah.
This doesn't help us control the budget, though, this type of software, does it? I mean, if we do anything with cost accounting, you know, that I sort of was pushing for.
I believe, Richard, it would give you
costs.
more ability to do more reports. Like, for example, you have the chart of accounts, that's the state chart of accounts. You'd be able to do cost accounting by, identifying those items to
As
be
I
accounted
say,
differently.
does this program envision that?
I would
Some
imagine.
sort of,
Yeah.
can you find out?
Yes, sir.
You know, we did do a study where we allocated various costs to each department and then attempted to break it down into public works and also sanitation. And I don't think anybody ever really pushed for that program, but I think that's a necessary part of this. I agree that you should have an updated method for paying people and things like that. But, and if you look at the budget today, it's still pretty difficult to figure out what the costs are at any particular department. So I'd like to see as part of that, first, is some sort of cost accounting system which would account for the revenues and expenditures across the 5 departments: planning, fire, police, administration, and taxes. Those are our 5 departments, and each department, we should know what it costs to run each department. Current software, for instance, lumps all the benefits into one section. And I think the tax department is the only one that has a separate number for benefits. And really, we should be spreading that across the whole spectrum of the other 4 departments so that we can determine what each one costs. And that includes administration. For instance, your salary it should be spread across 5 departments approximately. It could be 20% each, prorated or something like that. But that's what I think would help the council to try to make better decisions.
With this grant, have we looked at any software yet, or you're just?
Yeah, they're priced out. When you get the EIP report, there's a number of suggested packages, and we would have to bid those. Or
So we
solicit
have
those.
some defined plans of what the software is. Maybe we could check those out to see.
That's exactly how
if they
I'll
do.
follow with Richards, yeah.
The system we do has it's done its job, but it doesn't provide the wow and the zing and the tools that we need to be able to answer questions, as Richard proposed. But if you have something in mind already, we know what those are. Those should be easy to research.
And we would be able to look at demos
Right.
and compare packages, as we move forward as well. If there are 2 competing packages. Yeah.
That's good.
Well, mark it down, but I'd like to see the cost of each department.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Richard, because I try to figure those out backwards, and it takes a lot more time to do it. When we would be able to do it.
When we got into this transfer station thing, We should have had that information already. I pulled it out and came up with my figures, and so did our consultants. They come up with their figures. But really, you have numbers that are associated with each line item, and it would be a simple matter, Mike,
The software
spread those over, sure, spread those over 5 or whatever.
Software should be able to do it.
I just don't want to give a blanket go-ahead, although I think it's necessary, but, you know, unless we get something specific, you're just going to have an upgrade to what everybody else is doing.
The steps will be, when we apply, we won't tell the state we're buying this specific brand, model, and release. We will say we're going to buy these software package, we're going to buy software packages that do these functions. We estimate those costs to be this. When we get the grant, then we go solicit for prices from the various vendors for whatever release. So you know what I'm saying? I will do what you're asking, but we're still a couple steps away from knowing we're going to get the 20th version of something.
Let me add something. I think the state should do this, not just for us, because we use a standard system here, and we have standard accounts. They should do it for everybody, and we shouldn't have to pay for it. So while you're at it, ask them if they won't give it to us for nothing.
Well, it goes back to, if you remember the first study we did, it was more like an 80-20 request, or 80 or 70-30. We'll do the same thing. The minimum is 50-50. We'll start there and maybe go to the state and say, you know, because of this being something that, you know, is universal.
Yeah, other communities could follow suit and implement this kind of a program. It could be a pilot program.
And maybe with these software, I'm sure they should have this. We can have satisfied customers, municipal customers, whether it's Greensburg or whoever would be using the software. Maybe talk to them and see how they like it.
Yeah, in the procurement process, we'll want to get references, you know, in the vendor information.
Thank you, Alex. That would be very helpful.
I don't know, Ann, if I want to have you talk now or a little later about rental. So maybe we'll do it a little later, because I know we want to discuss where we've been on that. And Jim, you could talk a little bit about that. But in Public Works, when the council passed the new rates, we struggled on how to advertise them, particularly what to do with weights between 200 pounds and 2,000 pounds. And I know there's alternative ways of doing it. One would be to move the minimum to 260 and just use the $97 rate per pound. That comes out to about a 0.0485 cents, and that's the spreadsheet that you have there. The alternative is, I think what Richard suggested was take the 2,000 minus 200 and take that 1,800 pounds and divide that by $85. That comes up with a 0.47 per pound. The difference is a little bit different. For example, by the time you get to 1980, under Richard's rate, 1980 would give you
$93.06.
And under the 260 rate, going at the 0.0485 gives you a $96 rate. So what staff was suggesting was to just simply move the minimum. And so when we advertise, we would say 0 to 260, $12 minimum, 260 to 2,000, any weights in between those would be at the prorated rate of the $97 a ton, which works out to about 4.85 cents a pound. So however you want to handle that, we just didn't want to average. The way it would work, Jim, clarify if I mess it up, is that we were to post the rates and have them out there for 30 days, but when we were looking to post them, we weren't clear on what to do with that in between. We knew we wanted the rate minimum change to 260. We knew we wanted the new ton rate change to 97. We just weren't sure how to word.
Well, what we should do is another resolution, make the changes Alex suggested, then we'll amend the Exhibit A to the previous resolution, the one we passed last month. Make those changes on Exhibit A, then we can advertise it.
You just bump the minimum from 200 to 260 up to 12.
and that works out to 4.85 cents a pound. The way Richard was suggesting, which also works out to 4.7.
A penny and a half. You're getting more per pound, penny and a half more per pound.
An 1,800 pound, let me comment, I still think I'm right. You can't convince me I'm wrong. But,
Well, you
you're a
can't
lawyer.
use,
You
well,
can't
you can't
convince any
use
lawyer.
a calculator, I don't know.
well, that calculator didn't have a
Oh,
fine
see,
word in
see.
it, that was the problem.
Didn't have a fine.
But anyway, and my calculations are that at
Right.
1,980 pounds, the cost to an individual under the motion that we passed would be $96.06.
That's, why do you use 1980? Let me ask that question.
Because that's what Alex used.
Well, I was just saying to get up, that's the last increment before 2,000. What happens if we kept it at 200 and said everything between 200 and 2,000 as at the prorated rate of the $97 a ton? The people throwing away 220 and throwing away 240 were actually paying less than someone who threw away less. You know, they were paying a lesser amount because that person was paying $12, even though they threw away, let's say, only 200 pounds.
Alex, that's not what I created. Joe, did you get that
No.
system that I made out?
Yes, I did. I provided that to Alex.
And then again, to be clear, what Richard said is, between the weights of 200 and 2,000 pounds, the rate would be approximately 4.7 cents. And you arrive at that rate by taking the 2,000, subtracting 200 pounds, leaving you with 1,800 pounds, 1,800 pounds, and you divide 1,800 pounds by $85, which is the $12 subtraction from 97. I get the math, but what I'm saying is it's just slightly less, you know, on some of the throwaways, like for example 1980, than what it would be if you just had the rate going up to 260 with the minimum. Either way, it will work. So just rest assured, Richard's not wrong in a sense, but what the staff has suggested gives a little bit.
Who suggested it?
Joe and I, staff, myself. I don't want to throw you on the bus, Joe.
Jim's not wrong and you're not wrong.
And I'm not wrong.
No, you're not wrong and he's not wrong. We will get more money at 0.48.
We need to
Right.
clarify what we're going to advertise.
And there
So
are
that's
a lot of
clear.
instances where, I mean, even if you're going to throw away 100 pounds, you're going to pay $12. Whether you move that 200 to 260 for the minimum, you're still paying $12 if you take someone first 100 pounds.
We don't know what the
That's not
gross
fair.
average is of the minimum customer, but it could be as low as 100 pounds, for example. But the point is, one of the things we would say as a selling point, yes, we did raise the rate from $8 to $12 for minimum, but we also give you a few extra pounds to throw away as well.
Right.
A little bit of a salesmanship.
And if you look at it this way, you get an extra 60 pounds for the same $12, but then after that it's 0.48 rather than 0.47. So
And over that, for that pound, it's going to cost you $3 more. Not even $3, $2.97. So,
Okay.
and
We're good.
Okay, so, and again, I'm open to however you want it to read on the resolution. We can even leave it blank or whatever, but we do need clarification so that we can advertise.
I'd like to see a printed out schedule for 200, 220, 240, 260,
Okay.
et cetera, et cetera, et
Yes,
cetera.
sir.
And then you'll prove to me that we're doing it the same way.
Okay, fair enough.
And my only point is that I do find that 1,980 pounds, if that would be on the scale, you would take in $96.06. That would be with the $12 minimum at 200. And then of course, if you have a ton, then you take in the 97.
what alternatives are you looking for, Mr. Jim? I'm trying to figure out what to draft for Monday's meeting or next month's meeting. Are you looking for a 220 at $12, a 240 at $12, and a 260?
What we passed, Jim Kelly,
Hmm?
we passed it at 200.
Yeah, that's
$12.
that's where it is right now.
Right, and that's what I'm looking to keep it at, but, you know, if the committee doesn't want to do that, they want to
Okay.
up it to 260, I guess that's.
So I guess my point is that what I will prepare is 260 pounds. What council does with that then will be determined from the floor that night. Okay.
And I will, in the meantime, prepare the rates as
Yeah,
suggested.
sure.
The next
So
item,
in that matter, then at 1,980 pounds, we'll be on the same theoretical schedule almost. Actually, 1980 would probably cost a little bit more than $96.06.
Under my rate, it would cost slightly more, yes. The next item under Public Works is award the 5-year residential solid waste recycling services, commercial
I
solid
ask one
waste.
more question. What is the minimum out there now?
200 pounds.
200, so aren't you going to have to recalibrate or something to do this?
We would set the minimum of the scale to 260, yes. Well, we're going to recalibrate anyways because we'll have new rates. So the next one is for the 5-year garbage bid. We received 2 items, or two bids. A third vendor informed us that they were not going to submit a bid. Under the manager's report, top of page 2, there's a table that shows you the summary of the 2 bids. Republic Services, their bid came in at $3,894,897.60. And Advanced Disposal Services, their 5-year bid was $4,034,384.28, which, if you flip back to the page before, that's about $139,000 difference, or 3.6% difference between the two. Staff is reviewing and has reviewed the bids, so to speak, and it should be, it seems all straightforward to be able to award the bid to Republic Services on September 9th. I did provide for council just year 1 of the current price that we have from our vendor and the proposed price. This is a spreadsheet that just is labeled, it's a portrait style spreadsheet that's labeled current city rates. So that gives you an idea of what the current unit price. And what I've taken time to do is just show you how the difference between, for example, the bid price for residential base for 2014 actually is a little less than what we're being charged now for the residential. So you can see that example. I just want to give you that, one sample of 1 year. I have all years done in that way. I've also taken the extra step to prepare a draft for the committee's review and council's review of new rates that would take effect January 1st, 2014. Of course, based on the base price that we would pay to the hauler.
What's the add-on base rate optional 95-gallon waste cart? Explain that, please.
All residents in town have the privilege to choose between just using stickers and bags or, for an extra fee monthly, having a tote or a cart. And that's what that extra is. Now, of course, when we bill it back to the customers, we're going to take into account those customers will not be buying stickers, which is the direct revenue to the city. So our markup, for example, will be,
To cover for the loss of stickers.
exactly.
And,
We don't really make that real clear about that for the residents, you know.
can you get a 45-gallon cart?
No, the way it's bid is 95.
It's the way it's bid. I mean, can you get a 45 or 65? You have to take a 95. That's
You got stickers or 95, that's your choice. Now, if you can't
can
fit all your
something
garbage,
so we could, perhaps if somebody wants a 65, they could get a 65. Can you
that's not the way it's
negotiate
bid.
that? Can you negotiate
more-
at this
we-
point?
I don't know if we can negotiate that or not, but you gotta buy those carts at $2,000 or $4,000 a clip. So if you wanna buy 2,000 65-gallon carts to appease 17 people in the city, we have to buy 2,000 carts.
Okay, so, all right, so what you're telling me is if I want the 95-gallon, I can use that. And is that just for waste? That's not for recyclable?
Each resident will get a recycling card as well.
Is that free or
That's part of the base price.
what size is that?
I believe what did we say, 65 gallon? Yeah,
You don't
65
know.
gallon.
Oh,
Sounds
65.
I do know, I just want to make sure I don't get confused with my numbers. I gotta have my numbers guy back here.
Do you have to take that card?
Yes, you do. Well, you don't have to use it. But you have
That's
to
the
pick it.
single stream recycling. That replaces the hand load tubs that you carry out and crack and break all over the place.
Now, may I ask a question? Can you, in any way, shape, or form, purchase by yourself a 45-gallon cart for recycling? Is there any
There was
problem?
nothing in our bid specs that allowed for that to happen, and so I don't envision that being able to take place.
Can you ask the lowest bidder?
They're in the room, but again, you just open up for the other bidder to say, well, man, if this was what we could do, we'd have done it this way. But anyways, John?
I'm just
I
asking.
mean, we would handle it probably at a high premium. I would suggest anything that deviates from the norm is a great price to the individual for wanting to make us move, because we get the power buying savings by locking in one size.
I'm not asking the city to buy it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The customer would have to buy.
What Alex is saying is, we do have to be careful, because I'm sure when these bids are submitted, if everybody's using a 65-gallon container, they submit a bid based upon their cost to remove that container and put it into a truck. If we start changing that, we start changing the cost basis, and that does, as Alex said, that leaves us open for.
No, I think
Don't
Richard
have
wants
all-
to say, if you on your own want to go buy a 45-gallon
It's not a
cart,
question of buying the cart. The question is,
and
can the
put it
same
out there instead of the
operation,
65.
here's the question, can the same operation, the same driver, lift mechanically, because I'm assuming that's how it happens, a 65-gallon as opposed to a 95-gallon? If the truck is not set up for that, then you're changing the cost factor to the,
I'm talking about the 45.
I don't care if it's 45 to 65,
Well, there's a
65 to
gentleman in
90.
the back, maybe he could explain it to us.
Well, I appreciate the conversation. I'm going to go with the solicitor here. It's really not for me to negotiate that today. And I would really, I'd love to make comments, but I think it's really unfair. It's a situation that we have to, the contract with bid was, if you want to use a 95 for garbage, you use a 95. Everybody in the city is going to be issued a city-owned 65-gallon cart for
Did you buy a
recycling.
45-gallon tub instead of the 3-gallon you gave before, Richard?
What's that?
Did you buy a 45-gallon drum before, or did you use the ones that the city gave out for recycling?
Well, I never,
You don't
I've
recycle?
always used the ones that the city's given out for
Okay.
recycling.
Okay.
I just
You didn't want to change that, right?
No, I would use a basket like I have now, but I just think the 95 is a little bit large for a lot of people.
The 95 is
Or the
an option if you
65,
want it.
the 65.
65 is the middle one, and that's single stream recycling now. You're allowed to put newspaper, cardboard, in addition to the recycled material in single stream recycling. So you need a little bit larger container to do that.
Well,
Just drag.
You may make one comment on that, Rich. Just like a bid specification asked for. Whether it's a 65 or 95, they're all meet ANSI standards. There's a load rating, there's a turn rating, there's a tip rating, and whether it's a 65 or 95 or 35, they all meet their specifications. So there really is not a whole lot of difference between handling.
that's what I thought.
That's part of it. It was included in the bid. It's called a tip. There's a tip rating. There's a balance rating. All those things were within the bid documents, so that people know that whatever we supply to the city will be usable by anybody in this city.
That's one of the reasons why we've had them on display here in the city council chambers, is those ratios, even though one's a lot larger because of physics and the fulcrum and the center of gravity, is they tip relatively the same as one that's smaller. Just like I can't pick a refrigerator up with my bare hands, but you give me a dolly and I can tip and pull it.
But I think what the manager's saying, not this manager, that manager, but 45 gallon or the 40-gallon cart has the same pickup lever, and as far as, it'll pick up the same as a 65 as a 95. And that's why I don't think it would be any additional burden, but I don't know that.
It's additional cost to buy.
If the individual buying them, though, they may not buy something that's
Where you
they're
gonna buy
similar
it?
to this.
Where do you buy it?
It would have to be something that would be
Where do you buy it?
similar.
Where do you buy it?
You can get it on the net. They have them on the net. There must be 36 companies that advertise them, all sizes.
Well, Richard, let's try the 65 and see
All right.
how it works.
All right.
All right,
That's
we'll make an
good, Ken.
exception.
Okay.
And then the next item would be,
Alex,
issue an executive fee on allowing Richard.
No, I just, and I'm not the only one, because I know that I could point out a lot of other individuals that are 65 would be cumbersome for, and I think we are working for everybody.
All of us.
The next item on the proposed agenda relates to adoption of a new fee schedule for the solid waste rates. And again, that would be if the committee is able to meet between now and then. If we adopt those in October, for that matter, November, we'll still be okay. But we'll want to adopt them early enough to advertise for a January 1 effective date. And this again would be new rates based on the the different years. And I'd like the committee to meet to go over and to give input about those proposed rates. If we get our homework done, we might have it as early for that meeting. Direction from the
Are we talking
council.
about the rates to be charged?
Retail rate to the customer.
To the customer for the
Yeah.
residential and commercial?
This in effect is the wholesale rate that the city will pay, and then we'll do up a new rate schedule for them. And then the last item under Public Works relates to the new access road that Delphi's building. And we're looking at the last part of it where the alley is behind Chris Pecos's accounting office, that last part becoming actually a part of our street system. We've discussed this a little bit. The arrangement would be they would be doing the maintenance, they would pay for the utility light and so forth. But what it allows us to do is sort of have the alley system that goes behind Henry's and goes behind Pecos to be continuous. If it's a private drive, Delphi would block access to that alley, so you wouldn't have that convenience there. And so what we're doing now is we're inspecting it with the assumption that we would be able to take it in. Whether or not it will be completed by the September meeting or not would be, it depends on the construction and the weather. The benefit to the city is a complete traffic kind of network there and a tiny amount of liquid fuels. I do stress that. It would become a part of our road system, but wouldn't offer a whole lot. The stormwater, the maintenance, all of those things, we're talking about, and again, there will be an agreement that will spell out who's responsible for what, but the understanding is now that they'll be responsible for maintenance and upkeep of it, and again, the electricity to light it, just as if it was their private drive.
The main access that they're putting in now, that they're working on from Lloyd Avenue to that facility.
That's what we're talking about.
Where you see the forms?
Yeah.
The other thing I would
Are they gonna
suggest is we
sit
have
there?
something from the engineer when it's done, saying, yes, this met our specs.
And we have an agreement for them to pay our engineer to do the inspections and to do those kinds of things.
The curb has to be up there, right? We have to cut the curb.
They have a highway occupancy permit from PennDOT, yes.
We have a curb cutting fee.
No. There's nothing that hurts us at this point to suggest to the developer a fee like that.
We don't have one. We don't have one.
We just don't have them very often, so that's why I don't think we've typically done that.
Yeah.
Did they give you any information on that right of way that we're supposed to get down to the creek?
The path, the public
Yes.
walking, biking path, I don't have anything on that, but we can include that in our discussion, that some sort of, whether it's a deed, an easement on their deed that is reflected at the same time.
Yeah, I think he agreed to that. on
Right.
one
He
of the
agreed to it,
counts.
yeah, we did.
That could be used as part of that bicycle trail also.
Remember for us to talk to him about that. The next ones are special recognition. One is related to the Great American Banana Split celebration. Mayor, I believe you have a letter from the committee specifically for our police department, the thank you letter, and Public Works. If you want to read that, just I think it's important for Joe at least to hear what they've said about the good work you guys do.
You want to read an hour with the meeting?
We could read it now.
Okay. This is written to us, representing the coalition of partners who planned, organized, and implemented the events and activities centered around the Great American Banana Split celebration, held during the weekend of August 23rd to the 25th of 2013. Please accept our sincere thanks for supporting our efforts. This coalition consisted of Dual Fresh Fruit, St. Vincent College, the Latrobe Arts Center, the Rotary Club of Latrobe, the Latrobe Lions Club, the Latrobe Business and Professional Women's Club, the Hope Center, Latrobe Community Revitalization Program, Inc., and of course the city. The logistical and public safety support provided by Chief of Police Jim Newmar, Chief of the Fire Department John Brazili, and Public Works Director Joe Bush was invaluable. Their cooperation with the various members of the coalition was greatly appreciated. Of particular importance was the support and presence of various police officers and fire police personnel through the entire celebration. Their presence brought a sense of safety and calm to the many visitors we hosted during the weekend. Also present were members of the Mutual Aid Ambulance Service who specifically reacted in under 5 minutes to a person who had accidentally fallen and needed medical attention during Friday's Yellow Tide Gala. Again, extend our heartfelt thanks to all involved with making the Great American Bananas Split celebration a success. We share with Mayor Griffin and Council and you our appreciation for their support and confidence in our efforts to revitalize Latrobe and look forward to continued partnership. Sincerely, Nick Felice, Executive Director. That was a very nice note.
And then the last item, I would like council to maybe consider a special recognition for Andy Stofan, who served the Latrobe Area Chamber of Commerce for about 24, 25 years. He's retired this August. It would be appropriate for council to thank him for his work. When I solicited the council any input related to items, specifically Mr. Baldneri requested information related to the rental registration and kind of where we're at on that. So I know Jim Kelly and Ann Powell have been working at first with models or sample ordinances from other communities, ones that have stood the test of legal challenges. Specifically, this would require rental properties to be registered and the rent spaces to be inspected, and then when renters change hands, for the notification and so forth to be given on those. And the goal for the city is to protect public health and safety by having adequate housing through the rental units provided in town, and to protect property values from eroding because of substandard housing in the rental property market.
As Alex said, one of the issues with these types of ordinances is whether it will pass muster. And we have used as a model the ordinance from Mount Pleasant, which has been challenged in court, and has in fact passed muster. It's withheld that challenge. There are a number of things or items, provisions, that probably we don't want. And so what Ann and I are trying to look at separately and then together are those areas of the ordinance that we think we can eliminate without affecting its legal sustainability. We want to change it, but not any more than we really have to. So we have to kind of call out these unnecessary provisions, yet keeping it hopefully sustainable in court, because we don't want to have to go through a challenge and lose. So we're working on it. We'll have one to present to council. I don't think it's realistic to say for September, but I think October might be realistic.
Okay. Any ordinance related to rental properties, be they from the rentor or the rentee, they have to have some teeth in them. We have to have the ability to fine, issue fiduciary penalties. If a renter doesn't report that his rental property has changed occupants, what's the penalty? Right? I mean, there has to be a penalty attached to this.
I did get some information from Indiana Borough, who, I'm going to give this to you, Jim. Their ordinances, well, similar to ours, grass cutting, garbage, they send you one notice a year. That's all you get. And if you don't keep your property in compliance, then they'll fine you. $25 for garbage, $25 for grass.
So you don't have
But
to
they
give
don't
notice
keep
each
sending
time.
letters. They just, one letter you get, that's it. But they deal with a lot of the college kids too.
So, I mean, their letter basically says, here's what you must do. So they lay it out for them?
And is that just for renters, or that's for
That's for
home? That's for everybody?
everybody. That's for everybody.
They get that every year?
Yeah.
So, for example,
This is
someone...
what I would, yeah.
Yeah, for example, someone's grass is too high, they get a letter. Currently, we do the same thing.
Right.
And it says, within so many days, cut your grass.
Right.
Now,
First one's a warning.
yeah, first one's a warning. So those people, they cut their grass. 2 months later, at the end of the summer, they've stopped cutting it again. They're not getting another warning.
Yeah, they will get a fine mailed to them, and they have 48 hours to pay it.
Like a parking ticket.
Yeah, if they don't pay it within 48 hours, then they, for every day it continues, they add the same amount, another 25, another 25. Every day they're sending them a fine.
To make it plain,
Forever.
what happens in the city of Latrobe,
But Indiana,
Pardon?
Indiana does that.
That's what, yes, that's what this is.
in the city of Latrobe, we have frequent flyers, if you will, related to code violations, from which the city staff sends half a dozen letters to some folks over a year or two period. They constantly are in violation, but consistently getting it done just before the deadline of, some sort of action being taken from the city, which creates a lot of work for the staff to just constantly babysit a dozen or so property owners, is what we end up doing.
Plus, they also have a provision where they will do the work like I do. They'll go out and have it cut instead of fining. So it's not easy to understand. That's why I need you to look at it. I mean, but if we could do something like this,
Yeah.
it's what you were talking about.
Currently, and we have about 30 properties that we cut the grass for.
And how much does each grass cut cost?
It's different.
What's it
Depends on the
average?
size.
What's it
$25
average?
to $75.
How much?
35 to 75.
Yeah.
So, okay, $50, we're paying 30, we're cutting the grass, I want you people to know, of 30 homeowners in this town. We're cutting the grass for them, and we're paying the grass cutter $50 a pop. So that's costing us $1,500, how often are they doing it?
Every few weeks.
$1,500 a month.
And we end up leaning the
We lean-
properties
yeah.
so that we get that mone back.
Eventually, or
Eventually.
maybe not. But it's a lien. We can't even take them up to court, up to the magistrate.
Because the magistrate will say their grass is cut, so what's the
That's
problem?
not right.
Well, and the other side of the coin too is, we could go the whole 9 yards and execute against their property. But if we do that, we gotta shell out $1,500 to the sheriff's office just to start an execution against real property.
But there has to be a simpler method. As Ann said, what they do in Indiana, we have to come up with something where we have enforcement powers, where our code enforcement office is able to issue citations just as the police do. They have to be able to do that. We have to change that. There's an empty lot in my neighborhood a block away. Ann knows the one I'm talking about. It's owned by one of the big developers in this county, who happens to have his own private residence for sale at this point for $1.4 million. His grass is this high on that empty lot. She cites him, he gets it cut, they blow the grass all over the sidewalk, all over the street, and he lets it grow again. And she contacts him, he comes, and this happens every couple of months. I said to her, since he's been cited so many times, can't we just fine him? And she said, no, under our current ordinances, it just doesn't make any sense. We need an
That's what our
ordinance with
ordinances
some
say.
bite,
That's
right?
what our ordinances say, that either we do the work or we take them to the magistrate. But like I said, by the time they would get to the magistrate, it'd be done.
Right.
And historically, the city has chosen to do the work. This is about 1% of our properties we're talking about.
Yeah.
And we've chosen
Right,
to do the
because
work.
finding people does not solve the problem. The grass will not get cut. If you want to pay $25 a day for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, or just let us lien the property and the grass never gets cut. Just like garbage. That's why I pick up garbage, because I can't have it sitting around if it's raw garbage, household garbage. Instead of finding someone or taking them to the magistrate, we just eliminate the problem and bill them.
And so when the houses transact for a sale, for example, private sale, we get requests for lien letters, and then that's what we try to collect on them, on the transactions.
And
if
the
we
problem
can't
is
get them on
there are
their
foreclosures, there's no owners, there's no responsible owner, the bank doesn't have it yet, or the
So
sheriff.
sometimes
has
we
it.
lose. We don't get any money back.
Sometimes.
Didn't the state legislature pass it yet, a law stating that you could also go after other properties that they own?
Right.
That's right.
There is an F90, actually, I'm going to a seminar on that.
Again, that's part of the package we have to have council consider. And what
We
that
have to- the bottom line is, we have to do something, and we have to put some teeth into an ordinance where we can have the ability to find and make, and hurt these people, because they're hurting our community. It's that simple. Over on Lloyd Avenue, where we poured the stamped concrete, we eliminated the people that live there, their need to cut and trim, which they never did anyways, that curb strip. You go over there now, they have a little square with a tree planted, which we planted for them. They can't even weed the damn tree bed. There's weeds growing up on it newly. The people in this town have no pride.
Well, again, we're talking about a very, very small percentage in isolated
Yes.
cases. For the most part, there's a lot of pride, and what we're
Yes,
concerned
I'm
about is
sorry,
protecting the
Alex,
overall
yes.
property values.
I
of the community.
overstated that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very meticulous town, and I think you'll drive in other towns and you'll know right away whether the city's cutting the grass or not. Because some cities opt not to do that.
Right, they don't.
And for those poor properties, adjacent to those particular properties, it's like being held hostage, because that property is getting worse all the time, and nobody's addressing it.
You know,
And so
I
we're
don't
trying to stabilize
understand,
it.
as a lifelong resident in this town who takes a great deal of pride in the appearance of Jerry, my cousin knows, and anybody who knows me knows, Joe knows, I take a great deal of pride in my property. You have someone living next to you, as I do, two old women who are incapable. I take care of the damn house. Now, why can't these people in town take care of their neighbors that are foreclosed properties that aren't capable of doing it? Why can't they get off their butts and take care? Right, Jim?
Well,
As
probably
a community, we need to do this.
Again, probably a lot.
Huh?
Most of those you're talking about are
Well, then
rentals.
you go and you tell the damn landlord, and you tell him to come down. You know, that's,
Well,
I mean,
it's your landlord, I'll
there's a way of improving the damn looks in this town.
You have too many rentals, and they don't, if you don't pay attention to your rental, they aren't gonna take care of your property.
I know what
I
the
see it
reality is.
deteriorating in different places.
I know what the reality is.
While we're talking about those eyesore subject properties, what about the grub and pub that's been burned out? It's been several months now. What's the situation with that? I mean, that's an ugly
I had
eyesore
everything
that I
set to
see
go.
every day.
I don't know. I don't even know.
We're gonna have it down, we're gonna start tearing down
I
next week,
tried to,
really.
I couldn't even get a hold of Jeff Friday or today. He's not calling me back. I was all slated to have it actually started today.
No, it's coming down next week.
Who's he?
I mean, that was really nice to.
We have an officer-
July parade go right across there too.
Who owns two properties. There was a challenge because of arson investigations by which we couldn't get access to property. Challenge number 2 was the bank insured the properties on their own to protect their own interests. The bank, as of about 3 weeks ago, wouldn't even let us know what the 903 settlement was. The city has an ordinance that if you have a fire that it results in a catastrophic situation and needs to be demolished, we are entitled to insurance money, and we will either tear down or the property owner will tear down, but we'll have the insurance money to pay for it. The challenge was for 903, we did not know what the bank insurance policy was, nor did we get the check. And I'm real hesitant to authorize the demolition of a building without the property owner's consent. I'd like to have that. B, I want to know what the insurance amount is. I have both of those now. I have his signatures.
What have we done since the ordinance, since the clock started ticking?
Well, we have a signature now from the property owner to give us permission to do it. We now have the price. The big problem with you, Mike, one of it has been, both on Jeff's side, but also the demolition company that did community college gave us the best price. And for the last 3 weeks has not returned our calls. They got real busy. So then you start going up the ladder and you're paying a premium to go up there. And that's a challenge. We're trying not to spend as much money as possible so that we can
They're
afford
in the work, if they're just held up a little bit.
I believe next week they'll start to come
Like,
down.
there was also an issue which has been resolved concerning asbestos and differences of interpretation of rules.
Well, it's been
regarding-
resolved like this. When the tear down will occur, there'll still be asbestos monitoring.
Well, yeah.
And there may be additional costs to demolition. Now, the person who's involved in that they know that, and will have to deal with the same circumstances, whether it's the one we want or one that's a higher price. Correct, Anthony?
When that burns down, I think that goes under a different landfill and everything, doesn't it? Once it's
We'll
already
get-
done, it's gotta go into our hazardous waste dump.
Once it's tested, and if it's asbestos, they'll remove it properly. If it's not, if it comes back negative, the test, then they can just take it to.
So there are, my question is, we are not doing nothing. There is,
Oh,
there
no,
are plans in work.
I've been working with Jim every day for a month and a half to get signatures, to try to get this check from this bank.
And
It's
that's
just
what
been
brings
We've
us
had to deal
horrible.
with banks, we've had to deal with
Insurance companies.
inspectors, insurance companies, DEP.
I'm glad that we're saying all this here, so
Alex,
everyone
you
knows
said
that there
903, what
there are people that
Look in there.
are thinking that nothing's
I thought
happening.
this was some kind of code.
In reality, we're not
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
And I've gotten bids from 3 different contractors. Yeah, I'm
the other one?
ready.
I agree with you. I'm
need
glad we got to figure that out.
I need to talk
To be honest with you, it's an absolute embarrassment to the city
Oh,
that
absolutely.
through our two major, through 4th of July, our signature summer event, and the most recent Banana Split Festival, we've had to put up with such an embarrassment. We did take action, and we're going to get the cost recoup, hopefully from the insurance company, to put a high-end construction fence so that this weekend it would be more secure than the plastic fence. If you recall at the last council meeting, we got public comment about how poorly the site was holding up. But this fence is a little bit different and a little bit harder to mess with.
Who's entering into the contract with the demolition people?
City is doing that.
And how much is it?
Well, it depends. The one property, the estimates are what, 8 to 10,000. That's for 528 Main Street. And then the other property, again, asbestos is a bit of a wild card, but the prices go up to 30,000. Could be more. It depends on what happens when you remove the share walls with the two adjacent buildings. The 528 is a little more straightforward. The 903 Ligonier Street, the corner property with Main Street, is a little bit more complicated. And we want to be able to leave it in a condition that isn't just now a hole in the middle of town, but has some restoration and stability to the,
I would hope that, the demolition contract should definitely state that you're gonna break down the sides of the walls, and you're gonna fill it with good fill, and then top it with grass seed,
That's exactly
or
what they're
something
gonna
of
do.
that nature. That should be part of the contract.
It is.
But nonetheless, the responsibility still lies with the property owner. He or she or they are the people that should push that and should have pushed it to get it torn down. That's their responsibility.
Well, they're actually, by the state law that we go by for the fire insurance claims, they have 60 days after we receive that check in our hands to do something. And I didn't get that check till August 6th, so really, he has.
and again, that's so critical.
But we got him
understand.
to sign a waiver saying he's gonna waive those 60 days and we're gonna do it right now. So we got that far by not having to wait all this.
You can imagine an insurer's reluctance to hand over the money when arson is involved, and that's part of the reason why since April, when did it burn? April 20-something or May something?
April 21st.
Okay, to August, that's when, till we get a check. It's an embarrassment,
They
unfortunately.
don't like to pay anyway to start with. So now
What is,
then,
what came of that arson investigation? Does anybody have,
There is some ideas of probable suspects, but nothing else. I mean, unfortunately, arson is a very hard thing to prove, and anything for me to say would be inappropriate. Chief Kumar would be better able to answer that.
is it still an open investigation, I presume?
Oh, yeah.
With the
And they
state
closed it May
police?
22nd,
Well, he closed it from the sense of,
from the site.
yeah, but they're still
Oh, yeah.
wanting
They're probably
information
still-
and will certainly entertain the public's knowledge of what they know or don't know or have seen.
I thought you meant the site.
Yeah, the site has been cleared for us to
trouble with insurance companies.
There's been a few unsolved arsons now, right?
unfortunately, Legion Keener is one of them. The playland at Legion Keener has not been solved as well.
The All-American Grill, next to that, down there by,
Dixon
Rome Italiano, that place down there was.
Oh, yeah.
I
Couple of
think that's
years,
an unsolved
few years
arson.
ago.
Yeah, I believe that's unsolved.
Yeah, it's very, very hard to prove.
While you were discussing the problem with grass, which is a visible problem, I was just wondering if there's anything in this renter ordinance that we're contemplating that will allow us to do inspection, to check for overcrowding and
That's in our code already.
It
A lot of
is?
that.
But we will have inspection, we'll have stepped up inspection related to renters that new renters come in, or annually or semi-annually.
Right now, we have no inspections per se, right?
Only
Ann?
if the tenant calls me because he has a problem. then we
Right.
go. But if they.
But we can continue, there are landlords in this town who continue to rent and re-rent and re-rent and re-rent.
And we don't know what it looks like.
Right, the rundown, beneath code, I mean, nothing's up to
Because unless
code.
a tenant calls me, I'm not permitted to go.
You know, that's gonna increase the money we receive from knowing the individuals that live there too. When they change, we'll have people's names, and we can send them, the tax office can send them out the bills for the head tax or whatever it is too.
Yeah, we don't even have a count of how many apartment units we even have here, because we don't count.
I know when I had the apartment, I had to list there was a sheet that I received downstairs and listed the names of all my tenants in that there, so that they knew who lived there.
It's on the net, right? I think we brought that up before. It's on, the form is on the net.
Right, but that's only if the tenants pay the garbage bill.
Only what?
Tenants.
That's only if the tenants pay the bill.
If the owner pays the garbage bill for the building, or the tenants, we don't require them to give us their name and how many units or anything.
But maybe this new ordinance.
It will. Oh, it definitely will.
I went to the tax office, and the lady in the tax office told me that I had to give them their social security numbers of my tenants in order for them to send a bill out to me for the taxes.
Yeah.
I mean,
But I was required by ordinance to give the names, which I
Yes,
always did.
because they paid separate.
No, I paid my garbage. I had to dump. No, the
Well, maybe you
ordinance,
did it
I don't
because
think the
you're
ordinance
nice.
is strictly for the garbage. The ordinance is to get the number of the people that live there, so.
Yeah,
they
it's
can
actually
probably-
only for garbage.
It's only for garbage?
Yeah, but a new ordinance, a rental inspection law will give us everybody.
That's right.
Yes.
You're gonna get money from, the,
Per
once
capita.
a year per capita tax and everything.
And we're gonna find people who aren't paying for garbage as well.
Anything else?
Where do we stand on the St. Vincent's College Police Department?
Madam Mayor.
We're still discussing, discussions with the
Madam
township,
Mayor,
discussions with
I'm glad you asked that
college.
question, because I noticed that some other communities are trying to engage police departments from
Right.
cities and places like that. And I think the only difference in my suggestion was that it be some sort of a consolidation, because the St. Vincent College, for instance, pays no real estate taxes. Greater Latrobe School District pays no real estate taxes, and Adelphi Village pays no real estate taxes.
Oh, they pay taxes on property that's not like schools and that, I think, though.
Oh, yeah, on properties that aren't school-related, that is
Correct.
correct. The Adelphi Village does pay that. But I'm saying that even if they were to come out of the township of Unity, they wouldn't lose their tax base, because there is none on these institutions.
You know what concerns me is, whenever you have our police department covering St. Vincent's College and that there, it may mean having to pay overtime, which increases the retirement. I'm sure that money that they make goes into the retirement fund.
No, all that was accounted for when we came up with our price that we sent to St. Vincent. We accounted for the creep effect as well.
Well, if you have 3 officers up there, and you have to, as a result of that, with the contract with the police, if you're short on police here, you're required to call them in at time and a half here. Is that correct?
What St. Vincent was looking to do, if there's an incident at St. Vincent College, if there's an incident there, our police officers are going there anyhow. But St. Vincent asked us for special events to have someone there. And we could work that out with the scheduling of our current officers to have coverage at the college that wouldn't jeopardize coverage in the city. And the coverage at the college would be, at the rate that we were charging, would pay for our cost to have officers up there at a scheduled time. If something happens that they need police coverage immediately, whether we have this agreement with them or not, I'm month financial agreement, because of mutual aid, I believe our police department responds to.
That $93 an hour figure, does that include if we have to call in additional time and a half hours for the people that aren't up there?
Well,
Or just for the
again,
people that are up there?
Again, St. Vincent said if we have an event, they know they're having an event from 8 to 5 on Saturday. We're gonna schedule people to go there 8 to 5 that wouldn't be working in the city anyhow.
Okay.
And
So we're not
city
paying
work-
time and a half here as a result of that?
If we're paying time and a half for that, that's covered in our rate that we're charging for it.
In
I
my,
mean, but the bottom line though is, I mean, there's so many unknowns that we have to monitor very closely. You know, is it a moneymaker? Not necessarily, but right now, I can have an incident on Route 30 right now that could pull all my police officers out over mutual aid, and no one's giving us a dime reimbursement. When the pizza shop up near Dairy High School was robbed and our officers were responding to that, nobody compensated the city a dime for that
Probably
time.
didn't mean calling in somebody time and a half to cover a shift.
Well, it probably did when those guys were out there for 2 or 3 hours. I had to do something.
There's one thing about this contract, it's not a forever thing. In fact, we basically take a look at it at the end of 1 year. And if there are some inequities, then we're going to address it. You know, as Mr. Graziani said, it's trial and error, we're trying to structure it that it'll be beneficial to both sides.
Do you think Obama will ever agree to it?
I don't know that he asked it. I don't know that he asked it.
We don't need
Mike,
to.
I did note that I think the other community was offering its police $39 an hour, so I think that the figure that you put out is substantially higher, and I think that's a good figure.
I know, we did, we put
I
that
think it's
number.
an actual cost figure.
Right. And it's, I mean, St. Vincent's process, if they want to do that, they would have to get their municipal government.
So I have my management report submitted to you, and you're welcome to review and ask me questions. I'm available for meetings, whatever you need between meetings as well.
Do you want to-